afternoon, everybody. And I also would like to join my colleagues by thanking for invitation to us to provide our specific topics. I will focus a little bit on what is happening and what is planned for Myanmar. So I call it Myanmar Focus. I divide my agenda into 6 parts. The first is brief introduction of Myanmar, the current status, the journey into the reforms, sector growth, and I will talk a little bit about the telecom master plans, and I will conclude with ongoing activities. So this is an introduction. You will realize that Myanmar is the largest country in mainland Southeast Asia, and population size we are 5th in ASEAN. And if somebody from outside ASEAN was asked to talk about Myanmar, you will imagine yourself a country disconnected from the world, ruled by military government, with penetrations of telecommunications not accessible. This is something that you imagine, and it was really true before 2013. 2013 is an important year for Myanmar, because in 2013, we have triple transition. The first transition, which is most important, was the government reform, political reform process. From an authoritarian military regime to democratic regime, there was a reform. So that initiative was very important. And the second reform, we call that economic reform, was also initiated in 2013 from centrally controlled economy to open market economy. So this is also a very important reform process. And the third reform process initiative started in 2013 was also what we call as social reform. That is aimed to end the 60 years of armed conflicts. So these initiatives are still ongoing. And 2013 is also very important because until 2012, you will be very surprised to learn that one SIM card in Myanmar costs over $500 US. And there was also a time when it cost more than $1,500 US. So one SIM card was a fortune for Myanmar people. And at that time, populations-wise, tele-density was also below 2% mark. In 2013, we initiated, as part of government economic reform, what we call as sector reform process. And today, one SIM card costs around $1 US. And today, technically, nobody talks about SIM value because you are talking about value in terms of services. And you can select from 3 operators, and the 4th is also incoming. And the result, you will see, this is a golf curve. From 0.2% penetration to more than 100% penetration within 2 years' time, and translated into one of the fastest growing markets in the world. Of course, I have my colleagues from India, and I'm not talking about Reliant GIO. So, how did we get to this position? It all started, as I mentioned earlier, in 2013, when the government approved new telecommunications law, which paved for the liberalization of the sector. And then we followed up with the liberalization. And so there was a time when government had to make a serious decision. We could also go through phased liberalization processes like all other countries has done, or we could go directly into 100% open up market, open competitions. So we choose a second, leapfrog from monopoly in 2012 to 100% liberalization in 2013. And we conducted a tender process and selected 2 new operators. Telenor and Ooredoo were selected out of the tender process. So this was 2013. And in 2014, we also approved under telecommunications law a set of regulations, which all services in 2014. In parallel to that, we also started what we call as telecom sector reform projects together with World Bank. So these are activities that we carried out in 2014. And this liberalization process continued, and in 2016, we started in Myanmar the first ever auction of the spectrum. We auctioned 2.6 gigahertz spectrum band for wireless broadband. And it continued in 2017, where we are drafting regulations to establish an independent regulator we call MCRC, Myanmar Communications Regulatory Commissions. And we are also preparing and finalizing the framework for the release of 1.8 gigahertz spectrum band. And we have recently issued license for the fourth operator for mobile operations and for integrated operations. And we are also drafting framework for the universal service. So these are activities we are currently carried out in 2017. So now with these developments, this is the current status. We have 3 operating mobile operators. MPT is the government incumbent operator. Telenor and Ooredoo are the newcomers. And fourth operator, as I mentioned earlier, is expected to launch their services in early 2018. So we started this journey in 2013, and then today, as of 2016 December, we have already reached 100%, over 100% penetrations in terms of population coverage by SIMs. And I also provide some information regarding fiber, regarding international internet bandwidth. I made a little bit of mistakes in terms of that gigabit. It's around 300 gigabit. And geographic coverage is now, by mobile operators, combined together, they are covering more than 80% of the country. And from 2013, when we have these kinds of new regulations, we have issued over 100 new licenses for various types of services. And we also connected to international circuits through submarines from terrestrial cables, as well as by satellites as well. So this is the growth. In the 2013 approval of the telecommunications law paved the way for our sector liberalizations, and it is the legal basis for our opening of the market. And we have also approved key sets of regulations, including licensing, including spectrum, numbering, competitions. So these types of regulations are already in place. And we also conducted a very transparent international competitive tendering process for the licensing of 2 new operators. And during that license, 91 companies around the world participated. And Ooredoo and Telenor already launched their services in 2014. So our objectives in launching this tender process was to enhance our accessibility, affordability, and to provide ability of choice to our citizens from the operators as well as from various services. So again, on internet, most of our operators are providing high-speed internet services on their data. So our internet is basically on mobile internet. And there are also some other forms of internet, like on ADSL, FTTX, but they are very small and insignificant numbers. And Myanmar quickly becomes a data-hungry market for all operators. There are also limited 4G services available by all 3 operators, but we are also planning to release 1.8 the later part of March, and then 4G service will be available for all operators. Currently, most of the subscribers can access internet through mobile, and we also issued wireless broadband spectrum 2.6 for wireless broadband internet. And today, under our observation, we found that internet affordability issue is still a problem, and entry of wireless broadband provider will enhance this market, and further liberalization of the IGW sector will also reduce the price down. And this is our research carried out with our partner, and what we found out is that over 83% of households own mobiles, and with SIM cards. So it is very quickly adopting a market where everybody is using the internet-capable smartphones, and addition of a license conditions to provide the availability of the affordable smartphone handsets is a key factor in reaching up to that level of smartphone penetrations. When we conduct this auction process for the selection of 2 new operators, as part of the conditions, the government set a very stringent obligations to the operators to bring affordable smartphone handsets into the country. So it helps to make sure that our population, our citizens, are accessible to that low-cost handsets which are smartphone and internet ready. Today, the mobile internet and internet is an essential tool for exchange of informations. And very soon, it will also become a very essential tool not only for entertainment purposes, but for transactional purposes. Because today, less than 20% of our population is covered by banks. And only a very insignificant number of people have access to this bank accounts. So financial sector will also be taken advantage of mobiles. And I will not go into details of this mobile ownerships. It increased very quickly, and then multiple SIM usage is also a pattern. So you can see that smartphone penetration is over 76%, and it is also increasing. And one also important fact to learn here is that today in Myanmar, like other countries in the world, there is a shift from voice market to data market. So everybody is using data. And what is happening is that reduction in data prices will enhance this trend. And smartphone plus OTT is taking bites of revenue share from the operators. So as competition toughens, churn rates is expected to be high. This is, again, very important point, why people are not using mobiles and internet. And one thing is affordability, it's also very important, but this issue is being addressed by the government. But another issue will be usefulness. Local content sector also needs to be developed through this result. So I will skip. And then with the liberalization of the sector, we have developments very quickly. Foreign investment is the second in country besides the oil industry. However, only basic services are available, so we need to have a consensus effort. So we develop what we call 3-layer master plan: infrastructure, services, and the institutional frameworks. So this is master plan. And what we are doing now, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to create an independent regulator which is expected to complete either Q4 of 2007 or in 2018. We are also developing a framework for universal service to connect the last unconnected, and we are going to we are already liberalizing the international connectivity sector, which will happen around 2017, this Q1, and we are going to issue the spectrum 1.8, which will happen around Q2 of 2017. So this is way forward. We are quickly developing, and we are connecting and enhancing connectivity, the affordability and quality of service. Market is adopting quickly to data market, and with SIM sales reaching saturation point, it's becoming difficult for operators. So we also need to make sure that the sufficient investment is coming in. These are the key issues, but I think it's invalid for you. I will skip this. As a conclusion, we are opening up the telecom sector in 2003 as part of our reform process. We are one of the most exciting telecommunications market in the world. We learned and we are catching up. We not only learn, but we leapfrog. So we have a policy to use smartphones as a dominant pattern. So we have our master plan team as mobile first digitally connected country. Other sectors of telecommunications also need to be developed. So challenges also exist, but it is mostly regulatory challenges. So I think this is all. Thank you very much.